Hey, everybody. I read some of the comments regarding the development of market rate high density housing in Oakland and how this is going to solve the housing crisis, the affordability crisis, and the climate crisis. And I can't help but laugh. I think the people who advocate this kind of housing need to just simply be honest and say that they want and advocate this sort of thing because we have a lot of ultra high income people who can afford housing around here, and it's driven up the price for everything else. And these real estate speculators want to be able to keep selling housing to those people who can afford them at the highest end. They couldn't give a flying poop about the homeless or solving the homeless crisis. And what is most shameful is the current set of Oakland elected officials we have today are just simply interested in helping them along and have not treated homelessness as the true emergency that it is. That's why we have the problem to this point. To say, I just read a comment regarding the tower that just is slated to open at MacArthur Bart, which, in and of itself, I support. Fine. But what bothers me is we don't have a plan for all of this. This is just happening. And the people who are allowing this to happen are people who, in the next breath, will say, oh, they're progressive or they're liberal. Uh, but when you start to drill down to who they really are, they're starting to define themselves only as, not being for Donald Trump and nothing else. In 1980, 84 period, when Ronald Reagan was president, the Reagan administration trumpeted something called trickle down economics. Remember that? The idea that if you solve the needs of the people who are the wealthiest, then their benefits would trickle down to everyone else. Tell me how today's housing policy ideas that are being supported by many Democrats in Oakland is any different from the Ronald Reagan era trickle down economics. It's not. It's the same. We've totally forgotten what it means to do true economic planning, and we have opened up this market economy that says, let the caveat emptor, buyer beware, build wherever you can in Oakland, regardless of the cost, and we'll support you, we'll help you market it. It's great, it's fine. It's not fine if we don't have a plan. And for most of the 21st century in Oakland, we've allowed building without a plan. The 10K project wasn't a plan, it was just simply a way of allowing developers to fill empty spots. And I should know because I hosted a developer symposium for the 10K project early in 1999 on behalf of then Oakland Mayor Jerry Brown. So I think I know a little something about what I'm talking about here, and I could add a lot more examples on top of the one I just gave. What we need to do, pure and simple, is use the provisions that allow us to install tax increment financing that are already in place, bite the bullet, and build about 7,000 units of extremely low to low income housing first and solve the problem in the reverse direction. Not trickle down, waiting for the economy to somehow get a clue and lower prices for those who really need them, but fill the need now so we can solve the problem right now and move on with improving the quality of life in Oakland. Oakland right now is just like San Francisco, starting to take on the look of Blade Runner. You know, the high income people live way up in the sky, and the low income people live down, and the street people live, well, on the street. As much as there are those of you who say you don't want that, your actions don't demonstrate it. And not only that, I'm going to say this whole jazz about building more housing, solving the climate crisis is nuts. Many of you don't even know what the climate crisis is, and yet you pretend like you do. If I gave you a sheet of paper, you could not model out how we got here from one variable to the next and then run the model on a computer. You don't know. Let me give you a hard truth. Since I was born, we have added 4.4 billion people onto this planet. What happens when you put people into a room of the same size and it doesn't increase in size, and yet you keep adding more people? Simple answer, it gets warmer. So why the hell don't you think the same thing happens to our planet? We're adding people. And study after study after study you've never read, and I have, will tell you that even if we reduce our emissions to zero, we will still have a global warming problem. You know why? Because the problem is us. Which leads us to the hard question. What do we do to slow overall population growth, and who do we cause to do it? Right now, we're at just over 8 billion people on this planet. Projections are we're going to reach 11 billion within our lifetimes. So the problem is just going to get worse and worse and worse. And yet you will scream that, oh, it's a fossil fuel problem. Oh, it's somebody else causing the problem, as opposed to a need for us to really think about the future of our species at a very basic level. Again, if we were to reduce fossil fuel emissions to zero, we would still have a global warming problem. Again, if we were to reduce fossil fuel emissions to zero, we would still have a global warming problem. That is not to say we should not have as an objective just that, reducing fossil fuel emissions to zero. But even then, what do we do about the problem? Do we call for the latest technology? No. Do we get obsessed about producing television shows and movies and popular culture that show the application of ideas only talked about that would actually achieve this problem, like we used to do in the Star Trek days? No. We protest and hold up signs. And we think that creating an us versus them mentality is going to solve this problem, and it's not. It's just pissing people off. So wake up, get a clue, get smart, start building models, start developing technology, start advocating for the application of that technology, start thinking and stop protesting. We've gone the wrong way on this, and you think you're going to solve a problem? You're not solving any problem at all. Stop kidding yourself. Thanks.